Uh,
There we go. Sorry.
Sounds good. Oh, I had a message, so switched. Okay, so we can see the slide, right? Everything is good, back to norm?
Yep.
All right, excellent. Thanks.
Good morning to everyone who's joining us. We're so glad you're here. I'm Colleen, not Marilyn, from AIA. And if you would all do me a favor, if you have not put in your AIA number or your AR number, please be sure to do that in the chat so we can make sure you get your credit. We need to have it, from today. So we really appreciate it. And since it is just about 9 o'clock, I want to introduce Irina Sang of Miami Vertical Gardens, who's going to do today's presentation. Thanks, Irina.
Thank you so much, Colleen. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Unfortunately, I don't see you, so not to interrupt technicalities of this presentation. We have 20 participants, and I'm so happy that we have the green enthusiasts. And I hope that your interest in this topic is very sincere, not just because you need to not only because you need to get some technical information behind the topic, but also because you're really joining the group of people who believe in the future of green applications in all the designs, interior, exterior, and hopefully this would be a very, let's say, not only an eye-opener, but also I will try to provide as much technical information as possible so you can have confidence of speaking to your clients or any people who are considering doing installations of green walls in their designs. You will feel confidence in actually communicating all the benefits as well as how those installations have to be done to be sustainable, because that's the most important question. Typically, if I have a presentation, like a face-to-face presentation, my first question to you would be, all right, why don't we have more and more green walls? And a lot of times the answer that I get is that there are some objections from the clients, and these are the two main objections. So the first one is certainly cost, initial installation cost. And then the second question is the maintenance. So a lot of people actually concerned that, okay, fine, I love green walls, I love living walls, but what does it take to actually sustain a nice installation, and how long will it last? Do I have to constantly replace the plants to have this beauty living and being beauty, actually maturing, versus just, being a display where you constantly have to face constant replacements? So all of this will be discovered in this presentation. And again, thank you so much for your time. So let me introduce myself. First, my name is Irina Sang, and I am actually a person. The reason why I'm here speaking to you is because it's going to be next year 10 years since I'm one of the founders of the company, which is called Miami Vertical Garden. So I'm one of the two partners. And in 2013, we launched the business, actually originated from landscaping business. And we really believe that the living walls will be something interesting, something new, especially knowing the conditions that we live in Miami. And to take advantage of the tropical climate, I mean, this would be a great opportunity to get this business on a special, like a more specialized avenue, rather than just, looking at this as one of the landscape applications. So we focused on design, installation, and maintenance of the vertical gardens since 2013. And as I mentioned, next year we will be celebrating our 10th anniversary. And to celebrate it, I can really, from the experience, prove to you that our first installation, which is in Key Biscayne private residence, still has original plants. So that the first installation, you will see pictures later in this presentation, has been installed in December 2013. So it has 90% of original plant selection. So literally, when you reach to the base of the living wall, what you will see is, the plants actually will reach your shoulder. So that's how wide and how deep the plants have extended from the actual face of the structure of the wall. So we are very proud of it. We are very happy, and therefore being in front of you and speaking to you from the experience is, I guess, the biggest value that I can bring to the table at this point. So let me now start the presentation. Thank you so much. All right, so we certainly have a lot of different terms that people call living walls, but we do them all. And whether it's green wall, we all, like in this particular presentation, we will be focusing on the live green installations. So what we will be covering today is 6 different, I would like to touch upon 6 different items. So first of all, I would kind of bring a little bit inspiration at the beginning for you, what is happening in the world, where the living wall originated, where the whole trend is heading. Second, I will show you I will highlight major green applications that are now being used in the world. The third, then we will proceed to the living wall applications. We certainly have to discuss, since we are talking about sustainable living walls, I would love to discuss the key success factors and best practices through illustrating why specific living wall systems work and why some of them don't. So this is the most important part of the presentation, obviously, for you to understand the key success factors to pay attention, especially if you are shopping around for systems and you are considering to offer your clients specific systems. All right, so what are the world trends? So if you're looking at the map, these are kind of the major locations where the green walls are really picking up. So the originator, you probably heard the name Patrick Blanc, who is from France. He's considered to be a father of the living walls as we know now. And what we consider living walls is some form of system, panel system, tray system, something that can be attached to the actual structural wall. And the plants, instead of growing just from the ground up, the plants will grow in the system, on the surface of the panel, for example. Of course, ideally, the irrigation has to be in place, so no one can just hope that you will be hosing the living wall and then have stable conditions for the plant. So there has to be irrigation system. And of course, the beauty of the living wall system is that if anything grows from the root up, for example, a vine, if something happens to the root after 20 years of being matured, the whole plant is gone, right? So versus living wall, if something happens to the area in the living wall, you can just locally replace that plant and then without interference with the other plants. So in the long term, living wall is more sustainable in general because you can fix the living wall just focusing on specific parts of it. All right. So France, as I mentioned, is one of the leaders. The founder, Patrick Blanc, is from France. Then Spain. As a matter of fact, we have business partners that we've been working for the last 8 years, and they're based in Barcelona, Spain. We actually traveled this summer to meet with them and put together a bigger plan, what we would love to accomplish. And the work that they're doing is amazing as well. And they are telling us that, guys, you live in Miami and you have to take advantage of your weather, especially for all the exterior application. It's a heaven to have living walls literally all over the place. If we look at the Southeast Asia, I've traveled to China many times, so there are many living wall installations now in China, primarily in the urban environment, so to purify air, to add more greens, especially if you have limited space. One of my favorite places and the trendsetters, of course, in all green is Singapore. Singapore is actually, it's like a second name for the city. It's a garden city. So whatever they do, they always consider green. Being green is number one, the most important factor. So they try to incorporate living walls, especially because the country is so small. It's smaller than Miami-Dade County. And therefore, having that limited space, they go green vertically. In Australia, also a lot of interesting companies working in Australia. If we look at into Americas, right, North and South America, Canada also sets a lot of trends in green walls. We have some, again, US. I mean, I hope that we are actually growing bigger and bigger with this trend. Mexico, surprisingly or not, but Mexico has a lot of green walls. They are a little bit on a cheaper end in terms of execution and the systems, but a lot of green walls, again, for the reasons of reducing pollution. So bringing green to the cities where you have very limited space. And Brazil. So this is again, just a summary of the key players on the market. I'm not mentioning specifically, for example, Netherlands, who also developed a lot of systems, but these are the key players / consumers of the green walls. All right. I'm not gonna play the video in this presentation, but you can find it by the name that I put on top of the slide. This is one of my favorite inspirations to kind of see where the world is heading. It's literally a city. It's a project which is already been constructed 70% completion. It is in Malaysia. So it's called Forest City Iskandar. So everything there is all about green, including like underground parking and a lot of vertical gardens, a lot of trellises, etc. And of course, I would say this is my number one inspiration, is airport addition in the Singapore airport. It's called Jewel. So that airport is 1.3 billion lifestyle edition. So you cannot even imagine that this is a functional building. It's actually an airport, but it's the trendsetter to see how the world can look if we incorporate green in all our construction. This is a little more about Singapore, but this is a botanical garden. But and of course, you do expect things in botanical garden, but you don't expect those in the airport. All right, so a couple of other inspirations from Patrick Blanc, and now we're leaving to this spectrum. So what is the green spectrum that we, like I'm as a company owner, I am kind of considering or having on radar in front of me right now. So first of all, living walls, and that's the focus of this presentation. Second, green roofs. I recently traveled to Vancouver, Canada, and they have one of the biggest green roofs. where they have, again, they set like a Guinness record, how many butterflies and how much insects, good ones, they have attracted to actually that green roof in the public place. Trellis is another green application, living sculpture, and tower gardens. So as you can see, some of them are more decorative and some of them are even more, the purpose of them, such as tower gardens, is to actually produce food. And all of these are the trends that you can observe that take place right now. All right. So I would love to really stop on this slide because I kind of want to impress you with some numbers, with some statistics here and research. We're not going to go one by one. This is just a snapshot of the benefits, but I want to kind of logically make a list of some of them and focus your attention. So one of the benefits, as you know, from any green is definitely air cleaning and generation of oxygen, which in turn actually reduces increases the life being of people, because it reduces stress, it reduces clean air, reduces illnesses such as all related to breathing. It increases focus and attention. It reduces health complaints if you have a lot of greenery inside. Another benefit that I would like to again emphasize is the noise reduction. There has been a study where they actually estimated that the green wall absorbs 41% of the sound, as opposed to the traditional facade, which is equivalent to 8 decibel reduction in the noise. In terms of the enhancing, reducing urban heat, again, some numbers here is that the plants actually absorb sunlight, and what happens is that they absorb 50% of sunlight and 30% of sunlight they reflect. So through that benefit, the use of AC and the energy savings is actually 33%. So these are the real statistics about the benefits of the green walls. And as you can see, the title of the slide is where it's all heading. So besides of the good construction benefits and for the well-being of people, we also observe the trends where living wall applications are used more for branding and entertainment. So the companies or the places that want to attract more attention, they are thinking of different visions where incorporation of green becomes more interesting, more creative. So these are some examples. The left picture, it says Emirates. So this is from Dubai. So they have a Guinness record miracle garden where the largest installation is the actual Boeing, right? Actual airplane, and this is a vertical garden system. So it is literally an entire aircraft as a garden. Then the top picture is casino in Las Vegas called Aria. And the bottom picture is Atlanta Botanical Garden. So what they have is that every single year they have a collection of the vertical garden sculpture. And that collection typically has a theme. So for example, Alice in Wonderland, one of the or fairy tales. So they will have at least 10 to 13 different sculptures made of plants. All right, now we are switching to the actual applications of the living wall, and literally the pictures that you're gonna start seeing now on is the pictures from our portfolio. We have completed more than 176 different green projects, out of which the living wall accounts for, I would say, at least 70%. And primarily our portfolio is high-end residential with some commercial projects as well. So again, This is the living wall that I mentioned is going to celebrate 10th anniversary next year. So our first installation in one of the large size installations in the residential sector, and it's located in Key Biscayne. We also do columns. Unfortunately, I'm very sad to see how the columns, if you remember, if you noticed, in the Perez Museum of Art, there were live columns, and I am so sad that they actually switched to the synthetic, covering them with plastic. I really think that art museum deserves much more than plastic. Our experience with columns was very positive. I mean, it's still positive. This is an installation in Golden Beach. And this particular wall, you can see the picture is taken on the day of installation. But again, every single project that we have installed and we are maintaining, it's still live. And this particular installation is now 8 years old. All right. The third application that we use is also temporary installations, and we actually noticed a big trend. COVID slowed down this trend a little bit because there was no events, but now the business is really picking up, and a lot of people use living walls as their temporary branding displays. For example, for Super Bowl before COVID, the Super Bowl Miami, we had eight installations for the event at different venues. So what are the success factors? As you can see here, of course, and I did start my presentation, is that why we don't have so many green walls, and typically people are really concerned how it's going to perform over time, and that's true. If you didn't do your homework, you don't know what to pay attention on, you definitely at risk. You are at risk because not every single thing that is put on the wall will actually sustain the plants in the long term. And the main reason for that is that on the vertical surface, the water distribution is going to be much different than if you plant plants horizontally in the landscaping, right? Simply because when the water goes down on the vertical surface, by force of gravity, the water just will go straight down. So imagine if you have your irrigation line, which is typically a drip line, with bullets every 10 to 12 inch apart, and that water just simply goes down. There is no way that the water is gonna be catched by something, and it will definitely not be able to spread evenly throughout the vertical surface. So this is the one, I would say #1 problem in all failed walls, the irrigation system. As you can see here, this is an example. You can see how those I'm not talking even about the visual value of this installation. All those ugly trays and pipes and everything is sticking out. As a consumer, I would never accept this work, and I would never consider it actually viable. So let me show you some alternatives. All right. So what are the key success factors? We'll be certainly discussing 5 of them. So the first one is growing medium. So this is the main question. If we are talking about all living walls in general, there are 2 actually categories of all living walls: soil-based and hydroponic living walls. So soil-based, of course, obviously, the roots are going to be rooting into soil. And hydroponic living walls, this is what we specialize on. I will explain more details because there is no soil, but then the question is, where do the roots actually root? I will show you later on what that solution is. But right from the start, I would like to explain again that growing medium is so critical, is because you have to understand, once the plant, that the plant is not growing just because it needs water and light, and also nutrients. So the plant is supposed to have healthy roots, and the roots is actually plant mouse, right? So the roots, they are the ones who will bring the nutrients. Water is just a transport factor to bring the nutrients to the plant. So somehow the root has to constantly find nutrients somewhere. What happens in the soil-based applications is that not only the soil in which the plant is being sold to you, to the consumer, is not rich in nutrients at all. It's just the way to sell the plant, just to deliver the plant. Let's say you're buying your plants from Home Depot, and you will notice, you will bring this pot of herbs or whatever, you put it in the kitchen, you water it, in 6 months it's dead. Simply because the soil is not nutrient rich. It's very, very flaky, very fluffy. And therefore the plant in just soil without nutrients is not gonna last by fact. Just this is the truth. So there has to be some other way of medium that will actually not only absorb the nutrients and hold them longer, but also absorb the moisture, hold it longer, because any water that gets to the soil will just leach through. When the water goes through, and that's it. So the plant doesn't have the time to actually catch the water. If in the soil, in the landscaping, the roots will find the water and nutrients. In the living wall, they are limited. There's just no room, there is no space, so there has to be something that holds the nutrients and water, and that is a growing medium. So this is how we solve the issue of soil.
No, no, I don't have to. It's it's from my license. I have to listen to
Hello.
a couple things a year.
Architect's license.
Hello. All right, so that's why instead of soil, there is another solution, another growing medium, which we will discuss in a few. The second thing is irrigation. As I explained, just having a dripper is not sufficient, because the water by gravity goes vertical, just shoots straight down. If there is soil, it's just gonna go through, nothing absorbs it, nothing collects it, nothing distributes it. So obviously, this is another factor that will make your plant dead. No medium, no proper water distribution. Your plant will die in 3 months. The third factor is lighting. Lighting is very critical, but it can be solved by two things. Number one is proper plant selection for location. So we typically differentiate by project being interior versus exterior. And second differentiation is if it's exterior installation, what plants go to north, south, east, and west. So these are the major factors to consider with lighting. If there is not enough light, especially in the interior projects, additional lighting, special lighting is recommended. And we'll talk about it in a few. Plant selection is very much related to lighting, as I just mentioned. And finally, maintenance. The maintenance is one of the key success factors. So please do not be misled by companies who are saying that the living wall system is fully automated and requires zero maintenance. This is absolutely not true. It sets your wall for failure, because yes, it is correct that the living wall is automated. But what is automated? The irrigation is automated. But the fact that, like in any gardening, you can see whether it's a maintained garden or not. Anything that, like when the plant outgrows and you don't pick up dry leaf, it doesn't have the actually healthy growth, because you neglected the living wall, and therefore it will not have new sprouts. So all of those things are very, very important. And during maintenance, it's not just the trimming and clipping and making sure that the new plants grow, but also adding nutrients, checking irrigation. The irrigation cycle has to change for the seasonal change, etc., etc., etc. So there are many details that go with it if you are working with experts. a lot of people who do live-in walls, they simply don't know, and they mislead you that, oh, okay, in 2 years we have to replace it, in 6 months we have to change the plants, and the setting realistic expectations for them, but that's not how it can actually be done in Miami in subtropical climate. All right, so this is an example of that first installation, as I mentioned to you, how it has changed over time. And 7.5 years, I mean, we certainly have more recent pictures of it, but this is an example of one wall over time. All right. Why live-in wall? I mean, again, for the consumer, the live-in walls is no longer, and we see, like today I just checked the website performance, the analytics for our website, and I can tell you, I mean, I have 18% increase in the search for the topic of green walls, and obviously it's a trend. It's a trend, and in the cases when people find a sustainable product, it's definitely becomes an installation for life. We rarely had clients who actually had a live-in wall. We had it with the competitive products where people had live-in wall and already spent money on a failed product, but they still decided to replace it because they already cannot imagine the space without the live-in wall. All right. So what makes a difference? I want to emphasize three major things from here is definitely non-soil based applications, lighting for interior, and of course, when we'll be talking about the installations, how to maintain it, I'll give you more details how we maintain the jobs. Okay. So the systems. So if you look at all the live-in wall applications that are offered on the market right now, you can kind of categorize them into three major categories. So the first one is pocket-based. Within the pocket-based systems, there are again two types. One soil-based and second hydroponic-based. So our experience, and we find it much more sustainable, is pocket-based hydroponic system. What it means is that instead of soil in the pocket, you have what is called sphagnum moss. Sphagnum moss, you might be familiar with it because you see how orchids are growing into that moss ball. So that's what sphagnum moss is. So we use sphagnum moss inside of the pockets, completely eliminating soil component. And the reason for that is that sphagnum moss is one of the best growing medium for most of the tropical plants that we have tested. The reason is that it absorbs the moisture, it retains the moisture, it does not absorb that it more than it needs, so the rest will actually go through. And it absorbs the nutrients too that the roots can actually take from the moss. As well as for the interior installation, it does not smell and it doesn't rot and it doesn't decay. So this becomes a very solid, natural growing medium. All right, the second application, as you can see, is tray-based installations. And I'm not even talking about what design of those trays are available. There are tons of different ways how they are set up, but at the end of the day, there are two principal ways. One where the tray will keep the plants inside, and second is when the tray is designed such way that the plant sits in its own container and just stacked like bottles in the wine rack into the shelf, and the water is running like inside of the tray. Just imagine, how do you expect the plant to last if the plants are just sitting in its limited cell? And finally, like pure hydroponic living walls is when you have panels, and inside of those panels is layers of sponge. This is one of the systems that we use as well. So looking at these three categories, again, let me kind of repeat that we are using pocket-based hydroponic systems and hydroponic system with the sponge inside of the panel. All right, just looking at the way why we really think that Miami is just like an ideal place is because of the climate. You can see on the map that all this, the 365 days a year, predictable weather conditions. I mean, living walls is just, it's a heaven for living walls. Again, today the topic is sustainability. I want to show you an example from the Hard Rock Casino. This is a living wall that is now failing after what, almost 2.5 years of installation, post-installation. And again, the reason is very simple. The plant sits an individual container. It's limited. The roots cannot find their way. They cannot integrate with each other. Not necessarily they get even distribution of water because it's a drip irrigation system. And again, I explained to you why drip is not the solution, and I'll tell you what would be an alternative. And finally, because the roots cannot find their way to integrate with each other and get the nutrients, they just keep replacing plants left and right. All right, so let me show you, this is one of the products, hydroponic based panel that we are using for our installations. This is how it looks. So each panel is a standard size, 3 feet by 3 feet. And the panel has a plastic shell, and inside of it, it's layers of sponge. They're all interlocking with each other. And the irrigation system, even though it's a drip irrigation, the difference that is made here is that once the water gets into the sponge, the water gets distributed evenly within the sponge. And the second system that we use is a pocket-based system. But as I mentioned to you, again, the difference is that inside of the pockets, there is no soil. Inside of the pockets, there is sphagnum moss, which is our growing medium. As well as, now I'm bringing to your attention what makes a difference in terms of irrigation. So in our case, what we find more sustainable is that instead of a drip irrigation system, where you have the bullets, we use what is called sweat irrigation. With this sweat irrigation, it's a fabric line where the water is released by pressure, and then it's evenly soaked through the vertical surface. So our standard panel size is 8 feet 3 inch high. So it takes only 2 minutes for the 8 feet to get soaked wet. So 8 feet, 8 high by 3 wide. So 2 minutes to literally soak the entire panel. So the composition of it. All right. Another thing that makes a difference, and again, that was proved throughout our process of installing living walls, is that we actually pre-plant the living wall panels. We have a nursery in Southwest Ranches, and this is how we do it. So we install living wall panels, and I'm actually the one who designs all our installations. So we plant them at the nursery. It certainly does not, it eliminates a lot of factors for us from the construction process. So we are like the red carpet item. We are like an art piece that will be brought to the finished construction site when no dust, no paint in the air is going to be is there, right? So everything is going to be finished, clean. We install our J brackets, we install irrigation system, and just as the last item on the job, we'll bring pre-planted panels. 2 advantages. Number one, it's already been rooted very well, so we reduce failure already from the beginning of the process. The only thing is that, of course, the wall is gonna, the wall has to adapt to the location as well. So we typically would pre-plant the living wall maximum 3 to 4 weeks prior to the actual installation on site, so that the living wall does not adapt too much to our location because it's a covered nursery. And then when we bring it to a job site, it will go through the stage of adaptation, of course, but it's the failure rate is much smaller as if we would do it on site. And of course, from the construction point of view, it's also very nice and clean job. Therefore, we can do living walls at any stage of the game. Pre-construction, construction, like at a different stage of the game, we are ready to actually install the living wall. This is just some examples how we do column. So as I mentioned, this is Golden Beach. So they had 2 poles structure where we could not drill to. Then we used PVC pipe to actually cover around and then cover with the pocket-based system the columns. Okay. All right. I have already discussed a lot about irrigation, which is drip versus sweat. But now I would like to show you how we solve an issue of installations where we don't have irrigation line access and drain line access. So the way how it's solved, you can see this is 2 examples. On the left-hand side, one of the projects in Venetian Islands, we do have access to irrigation, and therefore everything is connected directly to the irrigation line as well as the drain line. On the right-hand side, you see what we call display, freestanding or mobile display. In this case, at the base under the living wall, you see a water tank. So that water tank is a part of the structure, and it has 2 compartments. In one compartment, it's an equipment box, and on the and of course, the bigger portion of it is devoted to the water tank. And of course, the water is gonna recycle throughout the system, and the water tank has to be refilled. This is example where this is in Jungle Island. It has a direct connection to the water line and drain. Typically, we always find a solution. In this case, there is a bathroom behind this wall, and therefore all the equipment is hidden under the sink of that bathroom. This is an example how the equipment set looks like. And of course, it doesn't have to be in that specific configuration. It could be all in line, it could be on top of each other, it could be vertical, could be horizontal, etc. But this is like one example is where the equipment is located outside on the exterior wall of the house. And the second example where the equipment is located inside in the cabinet. So as you can see, there is a nutrient bucket where the water is, where the nutrients will be added to the water through dosatron. The blue piece is what distributes and adds the nutrients to the water to feed the wall. Now lighting. In terms of lighting, very, very critical in the interior installations. You can see the picture. It's one of the real estate offices of Coldwell Banker on Miami Beach. It's a conference room, and you can see a very long pink and red flower. I mean, not pink, purple flowers. It's the flowers are called anthuriums. So anthuriums can bloom literally throughout the year, but in order for them to bloom, they have to have light. So those anthuriums, believe it or not, they are 8 years old. So they've been blooming constantly in the interior installation, and it's all because of the light. You can see the difference, how much light is recommended for the installation in the interior. So a typical office has only 30 candle light foot candles, but compared to the lighting that is required for the plants is 150 foot candles. This example, and it's actually very beautiful because the office is on the first floor and you can see it from the street, from the pedestrian walk. So the light comes on at 6 p.m. and stays on the whole night until 6 a.m. So not only plants get that light, but also people can see it from outside. So it serves 2 purposes. And you can see in the left corner, that's how it looks at night. Design and plant selection. Oh, this is my favorite part because I design all our installations. So obviously, by now we have worked with more than 160 plants we tested. And every time I try to introduce different things. However, of course, we have reduced our list to 25, what I call bulletproof plants for the living walls. And this is again an example showing how our nursery looks with planted panels. And this is how we would plant living walls in the system number 1, which is 3x3 hydroponic system. And this is the pocket-based system. Maintenance. As I mentioned, maintenance is very, very critical. Trimming, clipping, adding nutrients, changing irrigation setting, these are the primary purposes of maintenance. But I also would love to communicate to you how sophisticated the living walls are now. So if somebody just tells you, okay, we'll put a living wall and you water it by hose and that's your living wall, thank you very much, give us our check. This is not the way how we do it. So in our case, the living wall is actually, it's a technologically done system. And I mean, otherwise I wouldn't sleep at night if I would just hope that my living wall will just sustain on its own. So what we have to give us sleep at night is we have two things. Number one is you can see on the bottom left corner, that's how the remote monitoring sensor looks. So it's like a stick that we would install in all our residential installations. So it's pretty affordable to have that preventive monitoring system in each of our jobs. And through the application, as you can see on the bottom, we would track 3 major components, factors of the living wall performance. We will track moisture, temperature, light, and nutrients. 4, and nutrients. These are the most critical components and factors to track for performance of the living wall. So if anything drops below norm, as we set the norm as on thermostat, if anything drops, for us, it's a signal that something is wrong. So without that system, the things, especially when there is a third-party interference, somebody switched off the water, somebody turned off the lights, whatever happens, but we will be immediately notified that something is out of norm. And for the large installation, which I will show you in a few, we have the most sophisticated technology that we have integrated with that system. As you can see on the picture on the left top, that system is actually allows us to do the same, to prevent any wall failure. But the advantage of it is that it's a self-learning system. What happens is that the wall, the plants are literally communicating to the system, and we're not only tracking the key factors like on thermostat, but we also see how the system now adapts depending on the climate. Let's say it was raining for 5 days, so the system will adjust on its own the criteria to bring the entire living wall to norm. All right. When we get to some pictures, I will show you where that system is installed. So this is how the living wall process works for us. Is we do site analysis, we design living wall, we pre-plant it, as I mentioned, off-site at the nursery. Then we install hardware and irrigation set on the site, and then we bring panel installation. So typically, this process the installation process can be just in 1 day. Typically, it takes 2 days because hardware is 1 day and the pre-planted panels are another day, but it all depends on the size. And of course, we offer, since we are full service, we offer maintenance. Okay, a lot of times I've been asked questions, what happens after hurricane? And this is the answer, nothing. This is an example of living walls right after Irma. We didn't have any, fortunately, no major situations to actually be concerned, but nothing happened to the living walls post-hurricane. Yes, maybe a little leaves may be ripped, a little, debris that needs to be cleaned, but overall, because the plants are so rooted with each other, they are not sitting inside of individual container tray planters. So nothing is blown out. Everything is one cohesive system. So you can see these are the results. In some cases, this is Juvia restaurant. If you've been to Juvia on Miami Beach on Alton Road, this is not our installation. However, we've been maintaining this living wall for 6 years. For the last 6 years, that particular living wall is soil-based, pocket-based system by Patrick Blanc. Unfortunately, yes, you can see when the soil, the difference between soil and sphagnum moss is, yes, with the soil, plants got ripped a little bit than compared to the sphagnum moss application. And now let me show you some of the examples of our work, and let it be your inspiration. And of course, I'm open to any questions. So this is our largest installation so far. It is a condo building in Hollandale, which is called 2000 Ocean. So as you can see, this is how it all started with the inspiration and what it's supposed to be. So this is the living wall almost completed. And this is how it looks now. It's actually much more, the greenery has grown significantly since then. And to be honest, this is one of the challenging locations because it's on Collins, it's an oceanfront building, and it's facing west. So it literally gets hit by sun very, very strongly. But it is green, and it's all due to proper irrigation and nutrients. And as I mentioned, majority of our work is high-end residential. So we've done all kinds of applications and configurations, interior, exterior. And I'm just gonna literally just go through some of our designs. We've been working all the way from starting from, most of our clients are from Pinecrest and all the way to Vero Beach. We do have some projects coming up in Naples as well. On this example, I want to show you just like a little tip for the interior designers. You can see the living wall looks pretty simple because it's very small. However, on a perpendicular wall, once they added a mirror, it literally doubled the size. So it's a beautiful effect if the space is limited, but adding a perpendicular mirror definitely made a difference. This is an example of the displays, freestanding displays is in one of the restaurants in Sunny Isles Beach. This is in Apogee, also to show you how the display looks like. Freestanding display, you can see the water tank underneath. It's in one unit on 2 separate balconies. One is facing southeast, and another one is facing east. This is on Fisher Island. So they wanted to decorate the entire terrace, but only the bottom section of it. Oops. Coral Gables, Key Biscayne, Miami Beach. Oh, this is, by the way, this is on the day of installation of Coldwell Banker, the one that I showed you how the plants have grown with the additional lights. This is another interesting example where you have the interior shower, but then you have like a courtyard. So having something inside I mean, outside of that of that courtyard. That was the desire of the client. One of our publicly accessible living walls, it's our project number 2, is restaurant in Wynwood, which is called Q Miami. This is one of our largest installations in Fort Lauderdale. This one property has 4 living walls, one interior and 3 exterior. And of course, just as I mentioned before, for branding purposes, a lot of installations have been done as temporary installations, such as for Super Bowl. This is an example of Super Bowl. And our first project has been actually published in one of the books, which is a collection of 100 best living walls, exterior green wall design. Now I'm open to your questions. And I really encourage you, if you, I mean, on the website, of course, as you know, website doesn't get updated often, but if you want to see behind the scenes, how we do things, it's all on Instagram. So our Instagram is the same as the name of the company, Miami Vertical Garden. Please note garden, not gardens, so singular. And absolutely anything that you would like to know more about the living walls and how to present it to your clients, I'll be more than happy to actually respond to individual questions as well as inquiries, etc. And thank you so much for your attention, for your time, and thank you for joining the enthusiasts of green living walls. Thank you.
Irina, can
Yes.
you say which is the most expensive of the 3 system? I'm assuming the hydroponic.
Yes. Yes, I can touch upon pricing, just an average pricing for all systems. So it certainly depends on the size of installation, because there is a fixed component of irrigation setup. So that it's a fixed cost, and therefore it drives if you do 100 square feet versus 2,000 square feet, of course, the square footage price will be different, just because there is fixed cost of irrigation setup. But I can tell you on average. So if we are talking about those plastic, which we completely eliminated from our list, we do not consider them sustainable in the long term, and I hope I explained why. Those systems would range anywhere from $90 to $120 a square foot turnkey. The systems that we do, again, we offer 2 systems, which is pocket-based hydroponic system. This system would be on average $140 a square foot turnkey. And the ones that is panel-based 3x3 sponge hydroponic panels, that system is one of the most expensive. It's $180 a square foot turnkey. We tested both in different conditions, interior and exterior, and we really think, I mean, there are certain visual differences at the beginning, but once the plants cover, it does not make major difference between the pocket-based versus the hydroponic sponge-based panel. So $140 and $180 a square foot.
And there's one more recommended for interiors than the other?
This is a good question. The difference, and again, my background is business, and specifically marketing. So when I do present the clients, because I do have samples, I come with samples of the product, I show them and I explain the consequences and set expectations. So the primary difference between why the hydroponic is more expensive is because on the top of the surface, they have this sponge, the layer of the sponge, which kind of seals all the moisture inside of those sponges. So I would say that this is one of the key advantages of that specific product, is because, for example, for hospitals of like for medical interior installations, they are very concerned for having any fungus, mold, etc. Even though we did not observe any mold accumulated on the pocket-based system, in the hydroponic system, you definitely will not have any moisture on the surface. So therefore, initially, we were recommending that systems specifically for interior high-end installations. But for the exterior, it doesn't make any difference because it's still open in the air.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions? I'm happy to answer them.
What about maintenance cost?
Oh, good. I thought you're gonna ask me. All right, the maintenance cost, the recommended frequency is, because we are servicing high-end clients, and you know how picky people are and how demanding they are, one visit a month is sufficient to maintain manicured look, considering that no one else touches the wall. So one visit a month. The cost of the maintenance, typically, again, we calculate as $20 a square foot per year. $20 a square foot per year. That would include some plants. So we are not, in our proposal, we are not saying that every season we're gonna redesign, because that's not our objective. Our objective is to sustain the growth, healthy growth of the existing design. So we do incorporate in the cost minor replacements, but this allows us to actually, we have walls where we have 0 replacements. So for us, that's how actually, and that's why this is the reason why the business is still a business, because if our walls would constantly be replanted, we'll be out of business already 2nd year. So our main objective is to sustain the growth of existing plant selection. Any more questions? Hello.
Well, thank you, Irina. This was great. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thank you.
Please be sure to put your AR number or your AIA number in the chat. I'll leave the meeting open for a few minutes. If you haven't done it, please do it. And thank you very much. Thanks, Irina.
Thank you so much, Colleen. And I see comments in the chat. Beautiful, excellent comments. Thank you very much. All right, guys. Have a great rest of the week. Wishing you all the best. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Irina. I'm going to turn it off now.
Yes, Colleen. Yes, see you tomorrow. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I'm reading comments. Bye.